up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, here on a Thursday. Glad to have you all here live from Denver, Colorado. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show. Wherever and however you may be watching or listening, thanks for making us part of your evening. So much going on, so much to talk about. I've got 5 teams in mind for the NFL season because it's putting them up and on notice. I will be breaking that all down here in the bottom half of the show, but appreciate all of you guys for stopping on by. No Chase here tonight, so it's going to be a solo show, but no worries. At least I'm not alone up in this. Love all of my faithful viewers. Love all of my faithful supporters here up onto the show. Man, just a lot of exciting stuff. We got new partnerships. We got a lot really to talk about and go from here. But it's going to be fun and interesting. So I do want to start off the show with this because the playoffs have just been fantastic. And now we've got the conference championships on both the East and the West for both hockey and for the NBA. So the start of the NBA playoffs, as far as in the conference championships, have been tremendous. And at the same time, it's also kind of showing some truths from here. And so tonight, game 2 between the Timberwolves and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So game 1 that happened this week, you know, I had a lot really to kind of take in and just really kind of dissect it the best way possible because over this week, SGA ended up winning the MVP over Nikola Jokic. So a lot was said, and I'm going to talk about Denver as well because me living up here and in Denver, you got to talk about Denver sports. You got to talk about the truth behind the Denver Nuggets because there was a lot that said. Mike Malone ends up voicing off. And so we'll see what happened from there. But I'm happy for SGA. And the only reason of it is because if you go back 2 years ago with that trade between the LA Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that's what got Paul George to the Clippers. It got him to pair up with Kawhi Leonard. So the Clippers knew that they were getting at least, a bright star. He wasn't quite there to show for it at first because, well, what do we expect? He's a young kid, got a lot of potential. But once he got to OKC in that trade, this is probably by far the best build I think I've ever seen. And we know about Oklahoma City Thunder, where years ago, it was a moving franchise from Seattle to OKC. People thought OKC, like basketball, was this ever going to work? Well, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, multiple players made up for what OKC is now strengthening and building today. So to me, SGA is by far like the growth, like the potential all paid off. And he's now the MVP. And over Nikola Jokic, which to be honest with you, Nikola Jokic is still a great player, the great international star. But sometimes his MVPs, it's a great accolade when it's your personal accolade when you're trying to make Hall of Fame numbers and such. Okay, it is a very great accolade to have, but from the last few years in the NBA, it seemed like it's been nothing but, a popularity contest. But I felt like this year it was well-deserved for SGA because of everything that he's been able to do for OKC since building up to this potential now and taking game one in the Western Conference Final against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had no answer. They had no answer whatsoever in game one. And I think a lot of that just becomes growth. And you look at it from Chet Holmgren and you pair it up with Alex Caruso, there's nothing you would love to see more than just some of those teams. And this was part of the reason why Adam Silver barked about parity in the NBA, is because you'll get a lot of these markets like OKC and Indiana and Minnesota, and hell, you could even sprinkle a little bit of the New York Knicks. We know they're big money market New York, but when was the last time the Knicks were ever relevant? So SGA deserved it. He deserved the MVP. And I mean, Jokic has won multiple MVPs. Why would he need another one? Because I'll talk a little bit more about that on the back half, but the point is that SGA, seeing from his growth build, seeing from what he's been able to do on the floor, is one that doesn't go unsaid. It doesn't. And at the same time, you are a number one seed in the Western Conference, a young building team, and I think that's exactly what they're trending towards. So to me, SGA has really good ball handling skills. The other thing is he'll give you the shots, he'll give you the buckets, and give you the minutes. And ultimately, when they start off hot, they're going to continue that and then control the time. That's what OKC is. And I thought Minnesota was going to come out physically, but I was wrong about it. But it's not to say it changes my prediction of the series. But if OKC comes out of that series winning it and going to the finals, it's all a part of SGA. I know most people would not want to believe it, but he has done everything with this organization and helping to be a part of the young growth spurt here, the young growing build that OKC has been able to really turn the leaf on since KD, since Russell Westbrook, since Kendrick Perkins, since multiple other players, and now it's a new identity. And I'm all for it. Congrats to SGA, MVP, and taking game one in the Western Conference Final. I'm all for it. I love what I saw from the Thunder in the first game. All right, so the NHL playoffs has been, fantastic. Now we're in the conference finals. To me, I look at this series between Edmonton and Dallas. And a lot of this writing on the wall is Pete DeBoer has got to do it. He's got to do the job. So last night, they took game one in Dallas in high-regarded fashion. Not surprised. But this goes to show you, and I think a lot of this too is because, even here living in Colorado, I hear it all over on Denver radio networks. And to me, I'm just like, man, does any of these guys ever take a chill pill? Don't any of them? Because it seems like the world is flat. It seems like the world is just crashing down. The Dow Jones literally never recovered from itself. That's what it feels like. Thank God for the Denver Broncos. And it just kind of goes to show you. I thought it was interesting because lots of these Denver radio guys, they were all talking about and going back to the Mikko Rantanen trade. Well, the good news is because of that trade, you got Martin Nichis. You got a bunch of other players in the middle of that trade and draft picks. And all Mikko wanted was a high premium contract. He wasn't going to get that in Colorado. They were already paying Nathan McKinnon. Why would you want to end up paying a second guy so that it'll put you more in debt? Chris McFarland's not about that. And at the same time, and I've told everybody this, and you guys are not seeing it now, but you are eventually going to see it with Mikko Rantanen. Okay? Very high quality scorer. Okay? He can move around, also move around the puck, and he could also set up in spots that he could score in. But after that, when the puck is now on his backside and he has to defend, especially when you got defenders and you've got your goaltender who's having to stop everything in sight, watch how quickly you fall. It was part of the reason why the Colorado did not want to pay him the premium contract. Because Nathan MacKinnon is not only a great goal scorer, he's not only a guy that literally could just do everything. Skate fast, closest thing to, Connor McDavid in that regard, but I do believe Connor McDavid is arguably the best hockey player I've watched since Wayne Gretzky. But let's put it into context here. Okay? Think about MacKinnon. MacKinnon's a leader. And MacKinnon is the reason why everybody thrives around him. It's why, even with that trade, Martin Necas looked his best. Ryan Lindgren looked his best, even when you put in guys like Brock Nelson, multiple others. I mean, Colorado is going to be back in the playoffs. But the point of this is, and this topic is because Dallas finally has an offensive plethora. Because for years, I've always known them to be defensive. Always. I mean, you could go back to the last time that they won the Stanley Cup in 2000 when Mark Modano and multiple others, they were a very defensive team. They cared about defense, but they were not big on offense. Not as much. And now you have Wyatt Johnston. You have Jason Robertson, Mikko Rantanen, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. You got a whole plethora of offensive players. Roope Hintz, of all players. So Dallas has such an offensive firepower. And even though you have your star defenseman in Miro Heiskanen, and you've got your goaltender right there for the future, locking it down in Jake Ottinger, Dallas, this has been their identity for a long time. They've been ultra defensive. Just think about the times when they made the moves. I mean, when they got Chris Tanev, he was a guy that was not afraid to get in front of shots and block them. He was also not afraid to break up on a lot of passes, a lot of puck movements. He was able to just throw his stick, or he was throwing a body in, getting body checks. But they're physical. They are ultra offensive. And I think at the same time, they just know how to move a lot of pieces around. That's what Dallas is built to be. And I think watching this close up, I wouldn't be surprised. The Dallas Stars made it through, goes to the Stanley Cup final, because they've been on it. Like back in during COVID, they were in it and they fell short. But I think a lot of that is because they did not have enough offensive players. They did not have enough guys that were generating shots on goals, or generating goals for that matter. Just had a lot of defensive players to play physical and slow down a lot of teams. But they didn't have the offensive plethora. Now they do. And I love Connor McDavid. I really, really do. I like what Edmonton's offense is all about. But you are starting to see that very quickly. And that's why, Dallas, they got their foot on the gas pedal. They're not stopping anytime soon. So, it surprises me, because I know it freaks out a lot of Denver fans because of the fact of, Mikko Rantanen being a part of another team in just the span of months. But to see him a part of the level of success that right now Pete DeBoer and the Dallas Stars are doing right now, and leading the series 1-0 against the Edmonton Oilers, just tells you a lot. Like Mikko Rantanen, I mean, you got to think about it. Mikko, he didn't generate a lot of the offense by himself. Like, he was a part of really good offenses. And so, when I remember when he got traded to Carolina, the thing that really questioned me the most was how he was going to adapt, how he was going to gel with a pro-passing Carolina Hurricanes team. I mean, Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and multiple other players, even Taylor Hall. They were trying to figure out how that was going to work out for the best. And it didn't. No contract was signed. By the time they moved him up to Dallas, contract was signed for 8 years. So everything just happens for a reason. But then you look at the situations at hand. Could you imagine Mikko Rantanen having to spring out the Buffalo Sabres out of the ground by himself? I mean, yeah, he's going to have Tage Thompson, but that would almost look nearly identical to the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, with McDavid and Draisaitl. So you're trying to really make sense of this and put into context, because at the same time, he's not gone to an organization where he literally has to pull them from purgatory. And that's the one thing that I think we had to come to realization with Mikko Rantanen. I mean, he's a fantastic player, but I haven't seen him literally generate a lot of things all by himself. Okay? And it seems to me, I could see the body language. I don't think he wants to be the guy, but he wants to be part of the guys. He wants to be a part of that offense. That's the difference. I don't think he was really gelling well with Carolina because of just the scheme that Rod Brind'Amour was putting together. And that's okay. So, but yeah, I know I hear it a lot around here in the Denver area, and not a lot of people are all fond and happy with just the way that the success is. But, a lot of times business is business. It's never meant to please anybody. It's not. It just happens. It just happens for a reason. Good stuff. We got a lot of really good stuff to talk about here up onto the show. Talking a little bit more about playoffs, but coming up next, I just think it was really interesting. Mike Malone sounds off. And I just think this is interesting, in my opinion. And this you would never expect from a coach who got fired, but then ends up talking about a certain player. And a player you really would not want him out, badmouth. Talk about that here later on the show. And also, really, I've got 5 teams that are put on notice, okay? They all got the notice, they got the eviction notice, the paper, not like in that regard, but they got the notice on the front of their doors. So just expect the 5 teams that have got to win this year. It's not a Super Bowl, but you got to have a winning season this year, because then the Gattle, the Axe, whatever you prefer, they are going to be handled. And you'll be surprised at the teams that I have up there. Well, folks, since 1953, to me, I love a very good, tasty, delicious, and smooth cocktail whenever I get a chance, whether it's by myself or I'm with a great group of gentlemen. But since 1953, Maker's Mark has been developed. They have put together, and they have also mixed up arguably one of the best smooth Kentucky straight bourbon barrels that any man can make. I mean, there's many of them up out there, but what makes Maker's Mark so special is because just art, dedication, and the critique of what it means to be the best of the best and to be smooth and enjoyable the minute that it's poured into your glass. And there you go. Got one of our fans. Love it. They're going and getting themselves a bottle. But check out Maker's Mark for yourself. Because to me, what I love about this is the fact that having a partnership now with Maker's Mark just tells you I'm leaving the mark in, I think, arguably one of the most smoothest Kentucky straight bourbons. I love enjoying it. Love enjoying a nice cold cocktail beverage that I could just sit down and enjoy, whether I'm eating dinner or, maybe I might have a stogie or so, whatever it may be. Whatever your mark is, leave your mark with a bottle of famous Maker's Mark. Available in all stores. 21 and up, please enjoy the spot.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
So with SGA winning the MVP, a certain voice ended up voicing out about the MVP race between SGA and Nikola Jokic, and that voice just so happens to be former Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone. So I thought this was interesting because in the end, Mike Malone, I mean, of course, there was going to be an explanation of what ended up really happening when there were certain disagreements and such, and it just happens. It really, really does. And I know a lot of people are like, this happens so subtly that nobody could even figure that out. So to me, when I think about this, I think, Mike Malone, obviously, he's a very smart coach, loves his veterans. He's going to obviously put together a very, very good scheme fit for any team that I'm sure that he'll get a job at. He's not going to go without a job. But I thought this was interesting because Mike Malone was talking about his former star player, Nikola Jokic, when he basically commented SGA showed why he's the MVP, and was it taking a shot at Nikola Jokic? It was a soundbite.
Showed why he's the MVP. He took over in the second half, did so in a very, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He showed why he's the MVP. He took over in the second half, did so in a very, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
So a lot of people are thinking, is Mike Malone taking a shot at Nikola Jokic, and why? To me personally, I really wouldn't care And the only thing about that is because if you watched in the last 5 years in the NBA MVP racing, they've all been popularity contests. That's really all that it came down to. How many times did Nikola Jokic, and how many times did Joel Embiid, and how many times did some of these other players who won an MVP? To me, did they really care as much? Like Nikola Jokic, for a perfect example, do you think he really deep down cared if he won the MVP? My guess is no. And truthfully, I think it's because they lost to OKC. He cares about losing to OKC more than he cares about winning a freaking MVP. That's what I don't understand, is that they want to make this out to be a big deal. Okay? Look, MVPs, they're nice and all, okay? They are. And I mean, it's nice to have in your trophy case, in your home. But does that really trump over getting an NBA title? It really doesn't. Because in the end, SGA, even winning an MVP, will that equal him getting a title? Nobody knows for sure yet. But the only thing that I can say is why would anybody want to care about this? And do you think Mike Malone is literally bitter? I mean, is he really taking a shot at Nikola Jokic? I don't think so. I think really what it is it's embracing that we're having a new movement in the NBA. That's really what it is. And if you can't let that sink in, I don't know what to tell you. And I've heard a lot of old heads off the air. Like they all are like, well, because a lot of them, there's some of the youngsters that want to defend LeBron, and a lot of them that still are clinged on to Michael Jordan and Kobe and all that. I'm not going to get deep into that, but I understand both sides. Okay, it's hard to convince the old heads, hey, this so-and-so player, he's amazing, he's outstanding, he's fantastic. And then the old heads are like, yeah, but I've watched this player, I've watched that player, and you don't know. I mean, that's always been a conversation for a long time, and I really try to stay away from it. And the only reason is because sometimes it's exhausting and draining. Sometimes you just kind of sit there and you laugh because, if you're really talking about the player and you're really talking about the impact they've left on the court, I mean, at the end of the day, what gives? They all were great players in their own era. Okay. I remember watching the dog days of MJ and Kobe and multiple other players, even Shaq and so many. And even at the start, when LeBron James first arrived, the chosen one, they all called him. Okay. I remember watching through that and then watching all through. I'm 30 years old and I'm watching, I think it's unbelievable what Steph Curry's been able to do in Golden State. And now we've got all these youngsters and we're about to start another era again. Like, what gives? So in the end, I don't think this is a complete shot toward Nikola Jokic. I don't know why that narrative was even out there. I don't even know why people would bother to care. Because David Adelman, he just got promoted to head coach. Okay. The interim coach who sat there learning from Mike Malone, he's now a head coach. And honestly, I don't even know a lick about him. I don't know what he's about. So the only thing you got to cross your fingers on if you're Denver is that he works out. Okay. Because once you're handed the head coach and keys, like when you're handed the keys to the Lambo, you better hope you don't crash it. Okay. That's all you got to do. And in the end, the good thing is that you have a vocal leader in Nikola Jokic. And Jokic doesn't care about the MVP. Like, he cares about, we just lost to OKC. We didn't strive for a title. All right. And you got Minnesota over there knocking on the door because they're physical. And Edwards, I mean, they didn't show physicality in game one. That looked pretty bad. It looked like a complete mismatch. And, Rudy Gobert, who's only had about a couple really good games throughout the playoffs, he was abysmal. 2 points in that many minutes? Like, it just tells you. I mean, so, it just goes to show to you, there are certain awards that, like, they're cool and all, but when you really look at what goes behind a player's head, we didn't win a title. We didn't make the playoffs. So who cares? I mean, I don't think Nikola Jokic is losing sleep at night knowing he didn't win the MVP. I don't think so. I think he's just back in his own country again, spending time with family, recouping, probably replaying what ended up happening in OKC. And I'm sure he's replaying that in his mind several times. Okay. I don't think he truthfully cares. So leave it be. Why would we even put this narrative up out there? I think it's just doggone ridiculous. But, Mike Malone, he wanted to, honestly voice out why SGA won the MVP. And I think a lot of that is just more of a positive gesture. I mean, it's embracing. It's the movement. That's all it is. So why not embrace it? Time for the news.
This is the Hot Press.
All right, so some hot stuff out of the hot press. College football, and we haven't been able to talk a whole ton about that now for quite some time, but I came across this, and I thought it was really, really good, and I'm so happy and excited about this one because this is what I've been barking and harping about for a long time, and it's finally happening. And in order to make the college football playoff well worth it, this is what you had to do. So the college football playoff committee, the 12-team playoff that we saw just this past season and watching Ohio State win it. So the college football playoff will now move to a straight seeding model this fall, rewarding the selection committee's top 4 teams with the top 4 seeds and a first-round bye. So that means the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director, Pete Babica, who constituted the CFP's management committee, reached the unanimous agreement necessary to make the change during the call just this afternoon. We all have a responsibility to serve our constituents while also being mindful as to what's best for college football. This was ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips speaking about this. Today's decision was done in the best interest of the sport. It may not always benefit the ACC, but it was the right decision, and that's a responsibility I take very, very seriously. So here's the deal. What you saw last year, and this is why I love it. I'm really excited now for college football season, this upcoming season. And the only reason of it is I talked with so many people off the air about this move. And what this does is now, instead of the conference bid that we got last year, because you won the Big Ten, you won the SEC, you won the Big 12, and then all of a sudden Boise State get a conference bid? Like, do you really honestly sit there and believe that Boise State deserved to be in the top 4? No. I don't believe it. Neither did I believe Arizona State should have. But the way that this should have went about, if you go back to last year's, bracketeering, right? It should have been the top 4 teams, and who it should have been. I do believe Notre Dame should have been in the number 4, like in the top 4. Then there's Ohio State. You get Oregon and Georgia, and I would honestly, it's kind of crazy to me, but I think at that time you would have either put Tennessee or one of those other teams that were making it into the top 4, okay? And then the rest of them are going to be the teams that get the invite to the gala. This is why I've been talking about this several times, because the teams that it should have been in the lower seeds, because they're working their way to prove they actually belong in the college football playoff, is Boise State, Arizona State, SMU, Indiana, and I also do. Honestly, that was the other 4 team. I should have just put them up and in there, but Penn State should have. So I'm glad they made the adjustment, because now college football is there. There is no more excuses on the table anymore for college football fans. You cannot start bragging and feeling bitter about this. This is exactly what I've been screaming about several times, is that get rid of these conference bids. It doesn't matter, because even if you win your conference, I mean, the ones that you're not going to trump over is clear. You're not trumping over the SEC or the Big Ten. I mean, hell, you got the Big 12 and then you got the ACC. All those group of 5, programs and those conferences, I mean, it's not going to matter. So to me, I'm glad, because it's the top 4 teams who deserve to be the first round buys. Period. End of story. They should be the first round buys. Top 4 teams. And then the rest, it's going to be the teams working from the ground up. That's the way that it should be. That's the way that it was designed to be. So none of this conference bid crap. I love this. I absolutely love this. I cannot wait for the college football. All right. So just earlier yesterday, and it was kind of crazy, but Peyton Manning, he came out and he had a heartfelt story he talked about. So just recently, the late Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, has unfortunately passed away yesterday. And I know a lot of people thought, interestingly about Jim Irsay, but Peyton Manning, he had a heartfelt story that he was sharing about the late owner, and here was what he had to say about the relationship in his tenure in Indianapolis with Jim Irsay.
Can you just speak to the relationship that he built with the players?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that Jim Irsay loved the Colts more than any other owner loved their team. I know that's a great debate, but he grew up in Baltimore, right? He was a ball boy when, Johnny Unitas was playing, and, was a scout, was a general manager, obviously was there, when his dad moved the team in the middle of the night. So he grew up not just, wanting to be a part of an NFL team, wanting to be a part of the Colts. And in fact, in 1997, he becomes the owner of the Colts the year before they draft me. He just had a real passion for it. And like I said, he loved everything about it, and the players loved him. He was the kind of guy you wanted to play hard for, that you wanted to win for.
Yeah. I mean, it is sad knowing that, because Jim Irsay, I mean, in 97, because you got to think about it. I mean, this was at a time where right past the Johnny Unitas years, the Colts, they were moving from Baltimore to Indianapolis, okay, a town in Indiana, okay, and I'm not going to throw any shade, but, Indianapolis, there really was not much other than the Indianapolis 500 you watched every year, and then you go down up in the South End and, you watch Notre Dame football. So, to me, the Colts, once they moved to Indianapolis, it was changing the trajectory of the culture. And so when Jim Irsay took over as the owner and CEO in 1997, it was a year before they drafted Peyton Manning. They got the number 1 overall pick. They drafted the kid from Tennessee. It changed a lot. It wasn't perfect, because you got to think Peyton Manning was coming from a time when he had Jim Moore as a coach. And then eventually when he got Tony Dungy, and they had to fix the offense, they had to fix the defense, this team eventually got a title in 2000. I remember it clear as day against the Chicago Bears, and it was a prime time to be alive as a Colts. It really, really was. And then the fact that they've been to not 1, but 2. And, the Colts were such a well-respected organization, but I think in terms of this, since Peyton and Andrew Luck, once they both left, it's been hard finding a franchise quarterback. And this is why, too, I'll get to it in a second, but, the Colts, they've been a very proud organization. And I think a lot of that is Jim Irsay. I mean, Jim Irsay, he does a lot of things. He's very passionate. Like Peyton said, he was a ball boy when Johnny Unitas was playing in Baltimore. So he absolutely had such a heartfelt love for the Colts. whether they were in Baltimore or in Indianapolis. So it was sad news, but I think, it's interesting. I mean, the Bears, they went through a time like this when the late Virginia McCaskey, who was 105 years old, passes. And now, is this going to turn a leaf for the Chicago Bears? Could there be a leaf turn for the Indianapolis Colts, especially with the Texans and C.J. Stroud, the Titans getting, Cam Ward, and then you got Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and the new head coach? Could this possibly be, something that the Colts, will they turn their season around? It'll be interesting, but rest in peace to the late, great Jim Irsay. We'll miss you very much. Final piece of news, and right now, like I said, coming here, I was at the game not too long ago. Actually, this week, I was at the game for the Colorado Rockies, and this is just absolutely horrifying. Nobody ever wants to see this. So, Ranger Suarez of the Philadelphia Phillies in the 7th inning outdueled German Marquez to beat the Colorado Rockies just today to sweep a 4-game series. And now Colorado falls to 8-42, the worst 50-game start in Major League Baseball's modern era since 1901. And before that, you'd have to go back to, and this is what's crazy, but back to 1895. I was not alive then, where the Louisville Colonel were 7-43 to find a worse start. You got to go all the way back. The Rockies are now 5-20 at home and are in pace to lose 136 games this season, which would pass the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, who were 20-134 for the most losses by an MLB team. By contrast, the Chicago White Sox set the modern era record for most losses with 121 last season. So this is just outright embarrassing. And what I also saw too, I was kind of looking at a little bit of social media, behind this, but I just saw recently here on one of the Colorado news stations that apparently somebody who was struck with a baseball back in 2023 that had to have reconstructive surgery, apparently was hit in the eye, ended up suing the team. Crazy, isn't it? Waited 2 years, 2 years for this. Like, he sued the team. And the only reason of that is because not only just for the foul ball that did reconstructive surgery damage, but the fact that the team is just horrible. And a lot of this has to come from, and what we talked about is the owners. Dick Monfort, and we've been saying it several times, the worst 50-game stretch ever by a Major League Baseball team since dating back to 1895. Like, that's just how embarrassing yet enriching the history of Major League Baseball is. I was not alive at that time. And to me, the Rockies deserve better than this. And I just think it's really unfortunate. I mean, you just watched the Baltimore Orioles, and what was also hard is they also fired their manager, Hyde, that has had the worst start for the Baltimore Orioles since they've been to the postseason the last 2 seasons. So they needed to make a change. And it's a new ownership group. They got the money. They got the expenses. They got youngsters that they'll be ready to pay now. So with the Colorado Rockies, it just seems like they're penny pitching. It sounds like they're not really spending up the money, but yet they're settling for a contract. And Chris Bryant, who just hasn't even played the amount of games to live up to his contract. It's just been so many injury seasons that it's just really hard. It's really difficult. I mean, when I was at the game against the Phillies, just Rockies fans were just feeling the numbing pain. And the only way to really drown out the numbing pain was either an ice cold one or, the desserts or the food. I mean, in fact, my wife and I, we literally got a food in a section. And I kid you not, you just scan your card, it's $10, and you just go and get whatever food you want. So, I just thought it was just insanity. Like, this is the way is this really the way you bring your fan base to a ball game of a team that sucks? Hey, I don't know. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Well, that's all the news that I got here tonight.
This is the Hot Press.
So, going about, and I was talking about this earlier. So there are 5 teams that come to mind that it's important seasons for all of them in the NFL. Because especially with the schedule releases out now, we did the division predictions and the playoff pictures with Chase and I last week, and it was kind of surprising on both ends. And like I said, I felt like the New England Patriots are going to be a playoff team before the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think when you look at not only roster construction, but you look at the front office build, you look at the head coach, you look at a lot of just the play schemes of coordinators and staffs, you really have to question whether or not this is going to be the season that they'll make it right. Okay, they'll try to make it right. So 5 teams that really come to mind that they got to win this season. They got to get into the playoffs. So, and a lot of them is because there's been drop-offs. So, to me, the 5 teams that I can think of right now on the top of my head. Number 1 is the San Francisco 49ers. You just paid Brock Purdy upwards of $53 million per year and $181 million guaranteed for $265 in the span of 5 years. And you believe Brock Purdy is the be-all, end-all. He's your franchise quarterback. Well, you also extended George Kittle and Fred Warner. It kind of seemed like you had to force your hand. And you got the easiest schedule, okay, in the league. So there is no room whatsoever for disappointment. There's none. So San Francisco, they got to get it right. And they got to rebound back. I mean, this was a drop-off year for them this past season. But if Brock Purdy, even getting the contract that he wants and deserves, you got to now get 10 wins. I mean, this looks like an easy enough 10-win season. But there's going to be a lot on the table. You don't know what Brandon Ayuk's going to look like. You traded away Deebo Samuel, so now that means Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, they now have to have very good seasons. And then not to mention, you lost over 13 players to free agency. You had to bring back Robert Saleh to be the defensive coordinator because you realized, like, Saleh is the only person that could literally turn these types of players, right, the fourth and fifth stringers into first-string players, okay, because of the way that you lost a lot of those players. So now, and then you go and get an edge rusher. You got a bunch of defensive players, and then finally you go and get offensive players who, I don't even know are going to pan out. And I kept saying this, that they should have drafted Shedeur, because at least you've got a quarterback, you got an ace in the hole, that if this doesn't work out with Brock Purdy, and you realized that last year with the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, that was their time to shine. And San Francisco kind of got hit with reality because of injuries, inconsistencies, and they just were not playing their best. So now you get McCaffrey back. You got Brandon Ayuk back. You paid Brock Purdy. Who knows if this is honestly going to end up meshing, and is it honestly going to get them a winning season to go to the playoffs? So that's one team in mind. The second team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got to get into the playoffs this year. And the reason of this is because it is all trying to prove, what is Trevor Lawrence? Is Trevor Lawrence the guy, or is he a bit overrated? Because that's where Liam Cohen really has to get this right for Jacksonville. You traded away a first-round pick for next year to Cleveland just so you got Travis Hunter. You wanted a home run swing already after you were a brand new staff, a brand new coach. What are you doing? So that's the part that obviously boggles my mind. I can't even begin to tell you how many Jags fans I've come across, off the air that have just been on cloud 9. It's really interesting. But the thing is that I know Jacksonville, okay? Shad Khan, the Khan family, they're so, it's weird. It is weird how they kind of run a lot of their operation, because you give away a first-round draft pick. You don't take necessarily the impactful player, at least the best athlete available. Okay. Okay, so you get Travis Hunter. But you have 2 receivers. Did you forget about that? You got Brian Thomas and you got Travis Hunter. Who else you got on that depth chart? Anybody? I mean, you got rid of Evan Ingram, your tight end. He's now in Denver. And who knows if your defense is honestly going to be much better with that secondary just being horrendous. I mean, I don't want to hear about Josh Hines Allen. I don't want to hear about Trayvon Walker. I mean, get your defense right. So that's a team that we know that's got to win. I think the other team that's put up on notice is the New York Giants, because they go and they get Abdul Carter and they trade up to go and get Jackson Dart. They have got to make the playoffs this year, because a lot of this is Joe Shane is fighting for his job. I don't think he's honestly going to get it. I don't think they're going to retain him. I think he's honestly, it's more important for Brian Daboll. And the only reason of that is because we've seen him work with Josh Allen on his mistakes. And Jackson Dart, when I watched him in Ole Miss, I mean, highly talented, but you got to clean up the mistakes. And that's exactly why people were freaking out that, Jackson Dart goes before Shedeur Sanders. But besides the whole, raw thing, Jackson Dart is talented. He just has to clean up the mistakes. That's all he's got to do. And if he could do that, because again, people harp so much about, well, he didn't win in college. Who cares? Okay, Patrick Mahomes didn't win in college. Josh Allen didn't win in college. Lamar Jackson didn't win in college. Hell, Justin Herbert didn't even win in college. And you're watching the guys who won in college, like Trevor Lawrence. What are we to say to that? He's got 1 playoff win. So what? It never always translates the same way when you come into the NFL. It never does. Okay, that's just the way it is. But the Giants, they have to get it right, because they have been on this really interesting carousel for like the longest time. And this is why they've got to make the playoffs this year. So that is the third team that I have up and on here. I think the other team that I put up on notice from here that they know that they've got to win is the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, to be honest with you, the way that I see this about the Colts. Now, again, I know that they're going through the motions with losing Jim Irsay, their late owner. But Shane Steichen, I like him. Okay, I like Steichen. But the thing is that they have so many talented players, from Jonathan Taylor to Alec Pierce to A.D. Mitchell to Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. You have so many guys right up front on offense. And now you've got Tyler Warren. Like, it has to work with Anthony Richardson. If you don't get it to work, is it the coach or is it the quarterback? That's what you really got to figure out. This is why that they ended up getting a veteran, because at the end of the day, if Daniel Jones takes over, I think a lot of that is just that will now define it's the quarterback. I mean, think about this. At least the saving grace is the Carolina Panthers, because the fact is that, Bryce Young, he was overwhelmed. He was wildly overwhelmed. And then once Andy Dalton came in, it actually helped him to relax and be able to see the field of vision and then have a different perspective and now feel confident inside that pocket. That's literally what it is. And finally, when you saw Bryce Young, he started winning games. He looked confident. He was throwing the ball better. He was making better decisions. So I think with Anthony Richardson, if that becomes the case when Daniel Jones, if he comes out as the quarterback, and let's just say, Anthony Richardson, he comes in and out and he's not prepared, then it's on Anthony Richardson. It's not going to be on Shane Steichen, because he's trying a lot of these different situations and moves and schemes. And if it's not working for Anthony Richardson, it's the quarterback, because it could be one thing if it's a weird scheme fit. That's where you could tell it's the coach. I mean, I could tell the difference between the quarterback and the coach. Okay, that's I could tell you right now, it's going to lean more towards 60-40 the quarterback than it will be of the coach. And then finally, the team that I know has got to make the playoffs, which is very important for them. I think it honestly, it's got to be the Carolina Panthers. You got to make the playoff. The reasoning of this is because making the playoffs for the Carolina Panthers would mean the world to them. Because I think a lot of this is because Bryce Young, hopefully he has an outstanding season. Hopefully he does. Because you sat him down and then you swap him again. And now he looks like a completely different player. It's a lot of high hopes, but that's where you're hoping this now trends upward for Carolina. So those are the teams. Giants, Panthers, Colts, the 49ers, and I'm forgetting one other team too, but I'm sure I'll go back up on it. But those are the teams. Those are the teams to make the playoffs. Like, those are the teams that have to make the playoffs, because if they don't, there's going to be some changes involved. It's either going to be quarterback change, it's going to be head coach change, it's going to be front office change, it's going to be one of those. Oh, the Jaguars. And so it's got to be either one of those. Because, again, I think a lot of this is because now you brought in the new coach for the Jags, and I don't know. I mean, after that cringe-worthy, interview, I just hope they get it right. But the other thing of it is, too, is that you traded away a first-round pick to the Cleveland Browns, who now has 2. And then look who else is also, up and on the rise, is the LA Rams. So how, honestly, you define this and how you really go about this is going to depend on you. It really will. So I think it's reasonable. Teams up on notice. I mean, why not? I mean, could be good signs or it could be bad signs. Good stuff. James is going to be back with me here tomorrow. Really appreciate everybody for tuning on in. Enjoy the rest of the night, guys. We'll wrap this up with you guys tomorrow on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care of yourself and one another. See you guys tomorrow.